behalf of Clear Lake Bank and Trust and the Vision North Iowa partners, I wish to welcome you to the State of North Iowa program and to this terrific new venue. This hotel officially opened up last Friday, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful facility. I was able to take a tour last Friday with Calpesh, and it's just beautiful top to bottom. I'd like to welcome Calpesh to the community and introduce him, Calpesh Patel.
Thanks for the welcome, Paul. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. We're very excited to be part of the community, both Clear Lake and Mason City, obviously, sister towns here in northern Iowa. As Paul mentioned, we opened last Friday. It's been a journey through COVID and everything else. As you see, we're still getting stuff. We're still working through the glitches. I like to say we're welcoming our guinea pigs into the hotel now. So we'll get it all figured out and sorted out. But we're very excited to be here. It's been a great journey working with Mr. Mayor and staff and the City Council of Clear Lake in this project through development into an open hotel. So I have my operations manager, Jairus, here, myself. If anyone's interested in a tour after the meeting, we have the rooms open, we'd love to show you around. General Manager Chris is actually working the desk this morning, Chris Glenn, so you can wave hi to him if you like. He's got associated sick this morning, but he's also available if anyone has any questions or comments. But again, thank you for having us, thank you for being here, and we're excited to be part of this community.
I hope all of you give consideration to using this fine facility for your business meetings and events this following year. All of us at Clear Lake Bank and Trust are extremely pleased to be the sponsor of this year's event. The bank has been a strong proponent of creating a county-wide consortium to develop a strategic plan for this area. The bank, we understand as a region, we're all in this together, and we're much better together. North Iowa workforce shortages started before we had ever heard the words coronavirus, but the pandemic certainly heightened the problem. However, the relationships that we felt during the Vision North Iowa strategic planning process helped us come together and more quickly address the problem. One of the benefits of having the plan in place and having a true county-wide partnership is the ability to nimbly shift and focus on implementing strategies to take care of the most pressing challenges. Before we move to today's keynote presentation, I'd like to call your attention to just a few of the initiatives the Vision North Iowa partners have been working on over the past year. Housing, of course, is top of mind with the prices ramping up and the shortage of supply. Chad Schreck will provide some specific comments later, but we know in a housing study commissioned by the City of Mason City has confirmed we need more mid-range housing units for the current and future workforce. To that end, the North Iowa Corridor EDC is putting together a program to put more focused effort on housing options, and we see that it's working. Placemaking is also an important tool in recruitment. Robin Anderson provides some new data on the importance of placemaking, but suffice it to say, one of the impacts of the pandemic is that workers are not necessarily looking for the last dollar of income. They are seeking a better quality of life. In North Iowa, the lower cost of living appeals to the untalented. But more than anything, the next generation of workers are looking for recreational opportunities, entertainment, and just easy access to cool things for them and their families to do. We're seeing a lot of strides made in both Clear Lake and Mason City on placemaking efforts. Just look around all this development by the hotel, a new Hy-Vee grocery store has been announced, and the recently announced all-inclusive park in Clear Lake. And in Mason City, as the River City Renaissance projects come online, the construction of the Willow Creek redevelopment plan is already underway. Both communities are also investing in wellness. The Clear Lake Wellness Center and the Mason City Natatorium and Gymnasium demonstrate the area's commitment to our youth. And of course, all this culminates with recruitment That's the ultimate goal. The if you build it, they will come philosophy worked out pretty well in their field of dreams. But we need to seek out new talent and recruit them to North Iowa. Following the keynote presentation, we'll hear a little bit more about recruitment programs, including Mason City's Chamber's wildly successful Community Concierge program and the Vision North Iowa direct talent recruitment efforts that will be coming online very soon. All this is to say, while we admittedly have some challenges, I'm proud to be part of the community that looks for solutions. I'm proud to call North Iowa home. I'm proud to have raised my family here, and I think there's great things ahead. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the county, the cities of both Mason City and Clear Lake for all their leadership and guidance over the last 2 years. And now I'd like to welcome Robin Anderson and let her introduce the keynote speaker.
Thanks, Paul. I don't think I've ever introduced a speaker with a more intimidating bio. It's a true honor to welcome Dr. Ron Cox back to North Iowa. If you had the opportunity to read about him on the program that we placed on everyone's chair, then you know that he actually is a rocket scientist. So, like most of us here who understand the ins and outs of transonic aircraft wing design and wind tunnel testing, he can speak to those things. But more than that, Ron has a deep understanding of the struggles we're having with workforce attraction and retention. And we're fortunate that someone who is smart enough to be an aerospace engineer is focusing his attention on Iowa's dismal demographics and challenges. But Ron does more than name the problems. Today, he'll help us examine the hows and whys and the what next. Because at the end of the day, it's up to each of us to work on the workforce attraction and retention issue. But it's sure nice to have a smart guy like Ron Cox in our corner. Please help me give a warm North Iowa welcome to Dr. Ron Cox.
Well, that was a great intro. And now I have to live up to those kind words. It's great to be back in Mason City. I lived in the South, and we moved our family here in the mid-90s. And remember my wife and I sat down and said, do you think it's safe to let the kids ride their bikes across town by themselves? And we made them actually, when they got somewhere, call us to make sure they arrived there alive. So that seems ridiculous now, but moving back to Iowa after being gone for a while, I really didn't know what I was getting into. I coach soccer teams in Mason City, Clear Lake, basketball teams, softball teams. I've ridden all the bike trails. I consider Mason City, Clear Lake area one of my 5 homes in my life, so it's great to be back. Let's rock and roll. I'm going to read you a story. It's called the Iowa Workforce Skirmishes. And I call it the skirmishes because you're all having problems finding people. But I contend you ain't seen nothing yet. It's going to get worse before it gets better, and we're in for a war. And I call it a bedtime story because this story starts out depressing. But I would never put you to bed thinking the villain was going to win, right? That would just be a terrible parent. So it's going to get better, but it's going to start out dark and bleak. If you're not familiar with our center at Iowa State, we believe that your businesses thriving are the foundation of a healthy community. And our goal is to help your businesses thrive. We work with about 1,700 businesses a year in Iowa. Okay, I'm dedicating my story to my first mentor in the aerospace industry. If you pick up 100 books and look at the pressures on a wing, they all show you the exact same thing. And my mentor said, you need to turn 90 degrees and look at that wing different, and you're going to see something that's not in any book, and you're going to be a better wing designer. And it always stuck with me that when you've got a tough problem, we tend to look at it the same way over and over. And I'm going to tell you today, you've got to stop the foolishness. You're going to have to turn and look at workforce differently. Okay, the table of contents. Workforce past, present. I'm going to really depress you and knock you down with the left cross. I'm going to ask you to turn 90 degrees. Workforce yet to come. And the best movie line that was never said, Apollo 13, failure is not an option. Okay, why did I write this story? I found a survey we did at the height of the Vietnam War. What is the biggest thing affecting Iowa industry? Number one, lack of workforce. What do we need to do about it? We needed more apprenticeship programs. This is a little sensitive. And what's the definition of insanity? Here it is 50 years later. We got the same problems, and some people are saying the same things we need for solutions. It was the best of times. Question, maybe it wasn't the best of times. I wrote this last July when I thought COVID was behind us. This thing is having its problems. Okay, this is the PMI. Anything above 50, U.S. industry is growing. Anything below 50, it's shrinking. So you see the recessions on there. We sent everybody home during COVID. You didn't go to restaurants. You didn't go on vacation. You saved your money. You're now blowing it like a drunken sailor. And the economy can't keep up. And the supply chains can't keep up. And we don't have enough people. We are at a level of growth we haven't seen since coming out of the farm crisis of the early 80s, right? Huge demand. And it was the worst of times. Every one of those is a we're hiring, apply within, open jobs, signs across Iowa. I take, every time I give this talk, I take a picture. And there are dozens and dozens. Mason City's up there, you know it. Okay, prologue. Let's set the stage. If there's one thing that tends to shock audiences, it's this slide. In 1950, Iowa, Minnesota, and Florida had identical populations, 2.5 million. That wasn't that long ago. How is it Florida is now 7 times the size of Iowa, and Minnesota almost double the size? Let's look at these two situations. How did Florida go from the land of mosquitoes to the land of mice? I'm going to have to talk to you people over on this side a little more. Innovation, technology. The window air conditioner hit the market, affordable, and you could stand to actually live in the South. But Florida didn't stop there. They created a space industry, an international trade industry, a tourism industry, and a retirement industry. If you're poor, they don't want you to retire there. They want you. They want you to come buy a condo, go golfing, eat out, and spur their economy. 70% of their counties have grown 10% or more in the last 10 years. They are on a slope that's not slowing down. Well, it's not the economy, stupid. It's the weather. That's why people don't move to North Iowa. Well, that's Minnesota. And there's a kid in a T-shirt. And they're tougher than us, right? They're growing despite crappy weather like that. It's what I call the continuous improvement model of population growth. Twin cities, huge growth. But they're growing up north with tourism. They've got technology hub in Rochester. They've embraced immigration. It's a lot of little things have added up, and they have figured out how to grow. Okay, workforce pass. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse because the competition's getting better. Okay, a lot of people think it's the Twin Cities. I looked at Des Moines Metro today, and I went back to 1900 with the same counties. In 1900, 1 out of 12 Iowans lived in today's Des Moines Metro. We are close to 1 out of every 4 people in this state living in that metropolitan area. So I took Des Moines out of Iowa, and I took the Twin Cities out of Minnesota. So this is how and I compared them starting in 1950. But if you look from 1970 to today, 50 years, Iowa today, outside of the Des Moines metro, is the exact same size we were 50 years ago. If somebody grew, somebody else shrunk. That's not true. Minnesota's figured out how to grow outside the Twin Cities. Our growth in Iowa is lumpy. The red bar is how much the U.S. has grown in the last 70 years. It's over doubled in size. Iowa's only grown about 20%. But it's a lumpy growth. If you're lucky enough to live in Des Moines, Ames, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, or Davenport, you're growing at near the U.S. average. Every other metro area in Iowa is growing at about the Iowa average, and there's 80 counties, and a lot of them around here, that are shrinking. In the last 50 years, Iowa is the 5th slowest growing state. Every state around us is growing faster. And that's important if you want to grow your business. Because we're not going to do a lot of math today, no transonic aerodynamics, but here's an easy one. There's 300 million people in the U.S., 150 million work. There are 3 million people in Iowa, 1.5 million work, half the population. If you want to grow your workforce and your population isn't growing, you got real problems. So I'm here to tell you, we're getting blocked up the top, but the workforce villain is alive and well. He exists. He existed before COVID. He has been trying to stop your business from growing. Okay, chapter 2, workforce present. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. I don't know who Jay-Z is. I couldn't tell you one of his songs if my life depended on it. But I like his line. I don't trust any of you, but I do trust numbers. This is going to drive me crazy. This is unemployment. Blue is the U.S. It jumps up during recessions. We have systemic low unemployment. Don't listen to people that says unemployment's a problem. In the last 30 years, Iowa has the 4th lowest unemployment rate in the country. 46 states have higher unemployment than us. We popped up during COVID, we're popped back down. Now, could we be having problems? Yes. The country's really going back to work rapidly. And Iowa's kind of hit this kind of slowing down point. But let me tell you, Iowa started having problems before COVID. Unemployment started going up before COVID. COVID didn't cause everything we're seeing. This is employment. It's how we're growing our actual jobs in Iowa versus the country. Coming out of the 2001 recession, we grew just as fast as the U.S. We didn't go down in the 2008 recession. We don't have a tourism industry. And a lot of the cause of a downturn in the economy and jobs is loss of tourism. But look at the country take off coming out of the 2008 recession. Iowa not as fast. But COVID hit, we're coming back. The U.S. in this year is going to come back to where it was before COVID in terms of jobs, if things continue. Iowa, it might be 2 years, unless something happens rapidly, to get back. But that doesn't even worry me. This is what worries me. In 2015, before any of you could spell COVID, our job growth kinked over and flattened out. That is an anemic growth rate in jobs compared to the U.S. So this was happening before COVID. And like I said, it's going to be, unless something speeds up, a couple of years maybe before we get back to pre-COVID job levels. This is labor force participation rate. Everybody 20 to 65, what percent work? Red is the U.S. average. About 2 out of 3 Americans work. Look at Iowa. For every 20, 25 states above that line, there are 20 or 25 states below that line. Kentucky, West Virginia, Mississippi, all below that red line. In the last 30 years, we are the 5th best state in the percent of Iowans that work. Right? We have systemic low unemployment and systemic high workforce participation rates. And that's part of our problem. How can a positive be negative? This is take Iowa's rate of working minus the US. This is how much better Iowa is. We're 7%, going into COVID, 7% more Iowans were working, of working age. We really pulled people into the workforce, but it flattened out before COVID. We sucked so many people into the workforce, we were so good at it, there was nobody left to pull into the workforce. How did we grow? 2 things. We patched. We had this thing called the farm crisis, and farmers lost their farms, and farmers took on second jobs, and farmers' spouses entered the workforce. And it allowed your businesses to grow as the farming industry was injured. Something else happened. Across the country and across Iowa, women entered the workforce in record numbers. And it let Iowa businesses grow, even though our population wasn't growing. So we were hiding some of these problems with pulling these other groups in. We had another patch right here. We had a manufacturing crisis. Iowa has almost double the amount of manufacturing we should. We are a manufacturing intensive state, and it goes through cycles, and we shed 30,000 manufacturing jobs, largely to China. Those people didn't stop working. They became construction workers and healthcare workers and service sector workers. So again, it was a patch, and your businesses were allowed to grow at the expense of another business in Iowa. So, okay, the left cross, this is all depressing. Now I'm really going to depress you. I'm here to tell you, unless something really, really big happens, something the data says hasn't happened in 100 years, and I'm talking global warming. The East and West Coast floods, Iowa is the highest place left, and everybody moves here. Unless that happens, there's not going to be any new people. Now, we said you're going to try to get people here. I'm telling you, there's no more people coming to Iowa, but it'll be lumpy. Some communities are going to get people, and some are going to lose them. And some companies are going to find people, and some are not. So the question is, can you win this war? We've run out of patches, unless we want to injure another industry in Iowa. And we may have. The restaurant industry took a beating. Those people left the workforce, many of them. And as companies keep hiring, those people may not go back into the restaurant industry, and they might be going into other industries. So, in a nutshell, huge demand for products and services across the country. Our population and our workforce is flat before COVID. Our labor force participation rate, super high, but it flattened out. It stopped growing. And we had these patches that are likely gone. So, it's going to get better. I can't depress you any more than that. Okay? So I like this quote, because you can keep doing what you're doing. You can keep always being right by not doing anything different and pointing fingers. Or you can do something different. So I'm going to suggest something different for Mason City, Clear Lake. My argument is there's no more people, but there are more employees for some of you. And I know this because before COVID, we saw companies moving in this direction. What we did is 4 years ago, when we saw this coming at Cirrus, I wrote a proposal to do what I'm going to show you. And we were told it was the best proposal the Economic Development Administration received because it was looking at workforce different. Here's the idea. Everybody's 0 to 100 years old. What percent work? Roughly half of the 16 to 20-year-olds in Iowa work, roughly 3/4 of the 20 to 65, and about 1/3 of the 65 to 70. Everybody is looking for that thin red bar, the unemployed. Before COVID, 70% of Iowa's counties had fewer than 300 people in that red bar. And everybody was looking for the 100, 200, 300 in their county fighting each other. And we're saying, stop the foolishness. There's still 25% of the population not working. There are people employed. They're not employed here. Maybe they're employed in Minnesota, but they want to move here. Retention. Iowa is in the bottom quartile of states in turnover. Every time you lose an employee, you've got to hire somebody back. We've got to stop the churn in our companies. Process improvements, get more out of the people you have, automation, supplement people with machinery and computers, and don't forget the workforce of the future. Okay, this is a really tough problem. And I say this because it's you, it's people. You've got emotions, you've got feelings. You all work together at work, and you've got your emotions, and you go home and in church and school board, and it's what we call in mathematics a nonlinear system of equations, because you're all interconnected. The toughest problem to solve. And it struck me that we know how to solve those problems, because we know how to solve that problem. We can design the best fighters in the world. That is a nonlinear system of equations. When you touch the nose, the tail knows it. When you touch the tail, the nose knows it. It's all interconnected, just like people. Now, we know how to solve that problem. What can we learn from that to solve North Iowa's workforce problem? Here's what we do. It is so complex, we break it into pieces, because you can't study it as a whole. It's too tough of a problem. One piece at a time. And we do the same with people. We break workforce in Iowa into 28 kinds of people. And we study them one by one to see how many there are and where are they. What do we do at the airplane? We take one piece, the wing. We make it 20% bigger. We throw it in a wind tunnel and say, did that make the airplane better or worse? And we put the wing back. We make the tail bigger. Did it make the airplane better or worse? And put it back. And you go component by component by component, understanding what's driving that airplane. Well, we want to do the same thing with people. So how do we do it? If I had all of you stand up and come up here, and everybody of average height stand here, really short people over here, really tall people over there, you're going to get that curve. What do you call that curve? Bell curve, a normal distribution. Look at that. I knew everybody here was smart. That's great. Now we're going to see who the applied physicist is in the room. If I ask you to turn 90 degrees, get out of your groups and line up in a row from shortest to tallest, what do you get? No applied physicists. You get that curve. Same people. I told you to quit hanging around people your same height and get in a line. Shortest is the lowest rank, 0. Tallest rank, 1. Far to the right. That's the curve you get. It's just math. And about this time, if I get this figured out, you'll say, where's this guy going? I'm going disco dancing. So, I'm John Travolta. I'm too short. I want everybody to see me on the dance floor. So I'm here ranked 40th percentile on the dance floor. And I want to be taller. I want to be at the 60th percentile. It's just math. We know the height of everybody in the U.S., and it turns out if you all left this room and you came back and had 1.5 inch more heels and you all lined back up, you'd move from there to here. It's math. It's 1.5 inches. Guess what? That's what John Travolta would need to do, or you. We don't care about people's height. We care, are you working or not? So how do we turn this information we know about people in the U.S. and Iowa into something valuable? Here's what we do. We compare Cerro Gordo County with 1,100 counties in the Midwest. We don't compare you with counties in Florida and Texas because it's warm there right now. And we've chosen to live in the tundra zone, and we're going to compare Cerro Gordo with counties of other like-minded people who choose to live up here when it's cold and in August when it's 95% humidity. What we do is get this kind of curve, just like John Travolta's height. This is the percent of 65 to 74-year-olds that work in these 1,100 counties. The worst county is on the left, the best county is on the right. There's the U.S. average. Iowa's a little better. We have more 65 to 74-year-olds working. We have to ask ourselves, though, how do you get to the right? There's this county in Kansas that 4 out of every 8 people that age group are working. And that county in Michigan, only 1 out of 8 are working. So how is it that these counties to the far right have figured out how to get more people to work? Well, it turns out we don't have to go very far, because the worst Iowa county is one of the worst in the Midwest, and the best Iowa county is one of the best in the Midwest. So we know where these counties are. We know who's successful at winning the workforce war for this age group. Now, we've got 28 curves like this. We know which counties are good at hiring veterans and which ones are terrible, and which ones are good at hiring individuals with a disability, and which ones are good at hiring females with young children. We know this. Are we going to get 100% of the 65 to 74-year-olds working? When you retire, are you coming back to work? No. She's above there. She's part of the problem in North Iowa. But, like John Travolta, we didn't get him to be 7.5 feet tall. We moved him up 20%. If you look at the Midwest and you move up 20%, that's 4% more 65 to 74-year-olds. We know how many 65 to 74-year-olds live here. And if we look at 4% of that number, it's a reasonable estimate of how you might win in finding that kind of person to work. So what do we do with an airplane? We know all this information on what the wing does and the nose and the tail, and we go off and we move all the pieces. We studied each one individually, but we move off and move them all, and we get a better airplane. And we're going to do it with people. If you go in this direction, the people look like this, and there's not many of them. But if you go in this direction, they look different, and there's a lot of them. We call it the workforce vector. Which direction, and this vector exists for all 99 counties in Iowa, where are the people? Okay, next chapter, chapter 5. When you're torn between 2 choices, pick the one that makes the best story. Somebody more important than Lynn Gaynor had to say this, because I just found her quote on Pinterest. She had to steal it from somebody. You got 2 ways to go, North Iowa, and I'm going to assume you want to go the positive way. And I'm telling you, talking to hundreds of companies, 9 out of 10 companies are choosing path 1. Probably 9 out of 10 communities are choosing path 1. COVID did this to us. It's hard work solving this problem. COVID's going to go away, and everything's going to be okay. Do you believe it? Put your head in the ground and wait till COVID goes away. But I know there are companies succeeding at path 2. Because they were doing it before COVID. But it takes a hero. It takes the CEO of the company, the mayor of the community, the chamber director. Somebody has to be the hero. A lot of superheroes go it alone. Some have a sidekick. If you need a sidekick, feel free to call Cirrus. We have a number of federal and state programs, labs on campus, partnerships to help companies and communities look at workforce, look at technology, look at productivity, find new markets. Okay, how do we do this? Chapter 6. We're near the end. There are dreamers and there are planners. You need a plan. I heard in the opening remarks, you've got a plan. Super. Here's the plan. We talk to companies and communities. What have you tried? What's worked? What's not worked? What's the culture of the community and the company? What can you win at? This is the workforce vector. It's ugly. There's arrows go in different directions and bar charts and flags and all kinds of things. We look at each of these things and figure out what will work for you. What direction can you succeed at? And then there's the most important thing. There are 28 columns of kinds of people in Iowa, and there are problems keeping them from working. And depending upon who you go after, the problem you have to solve is different. And you've got to address these root causes to win the workforce war. So the fourth of 4 steps, you address the root causes, and then you change your marketing message that you're open for business. Okay, chapter 7, let's wrap this up. Failure is not an option. Apollo 13, something nasty happened near the moon. And this is what the flight director actually said. Never lost a man in space. It's not happening on my watch. You got to believe it. The whole team has to believe it. So my question to North Iowa is, not one of you, but do you all believe you can defeat this villain? Because if you don't, if you're going that direction, and you're going that direction, and you're going that direction, you're not going to defeat this villain. If you're all going to compete against each other and steal from each other, it's just going to be a round robin of people. So, if you want to grow your community or company in Iowa, you can always buy a company outside of Iowa, but if you want to grow here, and if leadership is willing to look at workforce differently, we have hired the easy people. It is going to be tough as nails going forward. Then you've only got 3 options. Virtual people. Get more out of the people you have, improve your processes, supplement people with computers and machinery, and if you need a body, you've got to attract them to your company and community by solving a problem that's keeping them away from here. You got to stop the churn, retain who you have, and you've got to steal from your competition. It's the American way. And it's good for Iowa, because if your company's better than his company, and you pay more and have better benefits, it's better for you to steal his employees, because the community will be better off. And you've got to develop the workforce of the future. So, last chart before the end. This is a company in Minnesota, branch plants in Iowa. Last year, their goal was to hire 1,500 employees at this one company. Look at their ad. Do you know how to do the job? No. I don't care. We'll train you. Do you speak English? You have to. No. I don't care. We'll train you. Does your religion require you to have holidays off other than Christmas and Easter? Not a problem. You've got those off. Does your religion require you to pay during the workday? Not a problem. We're good and put prayer rooms in our manufacturing plant. Does your religion make you wash your hands and face and feet? Well, we've got sinks for the first 2. We're going to put foot washing stations in. Laser focused. They have found a kind of person that is not fully employed, and they're going after them, solving their problem to get them to come to work for their company instead of somebody else. Okay, are you ready to look at workforce different? Are you ready to turn 90 degrees? The end period says you're going down path 1. Stick your head in the ground. COVID did this to us. It'll all go away. Path 2, that means there's a sequel to this story, and hopefully you will invite me back from retirement in a couple of years and show me in my previous hometown how you're doing. That's my story, and I think we're going to get to Q&A later.
Thank you, Ron. So as he said, we'll have an opportunity for questions during the final part of the program, and he's promised to stay as long as necessary to respond to your questions. So now we'd like to share with him and with all of you what the Vision North Iowa partners are doing to address the workforce attraction and retention issue. As you just heard, there's many facets to this, but we're trying to take this a piece at a time, a piece of the aircraft at a time. And first, we'd like to show you a short video from earlier this week.
end tonight where I began, by highlighting the amazing things that are happening in our communities. I do this to shine a light on what Iowans are doing and to remind us in this chamber that it's not our doing. In Mason City, residents are completely remaking their downtown with the historic Frank Lloyd Wright Hotel as an anchor. They've created a beautiful park on Main Street, repurposed a mall as an ice arena, and lined the streets buildings with second-floor housing. Revitalization efforts like these are happening all over the state. They're happening because people see something special in our small towns and cities. They see something special in each other. At the end of Field of Dreams, a magical movie we got to relive last summer, James Earl Jones's character tells Ray Kinsella in a baritone voice that I can't imitate. Ray, people will come, Ray. They'll come to Iowa for reasons they can't even fathom. If we get this right, if we take this opportunity, then people will come, but for reasons that are obvious. They'll come because here they can find freedom and opportunity because of our small towns and thriving cities. They'll come because we reward work, value personal responsibility, and care for our neighbors. Above all, they'll come because we put our faith in Iowans, and Iowans always come through. Thank you. God bless, and God bless the great state of Iowa.
So it was certainly an honor to have Governor Reynolds recognize the work that we've been doing to improve quality of life. But in addition to that, data from a survey commissioned by the Iowa Chamber Alliance last month revealed that quality of place is one of the most important things to Iowa workers. The Chamber Alliance hired a research firm named Signal to conduct a poll of working-age Iowans to better understand the issues that are important to our labor force. We need to find new people who are willing to move to Iowa, and we believe the best way to accomplish this is by first understanding what working-age Iowans find attractive about living here. So 826 people aged 18 to 65 who are Iowa residents and registered voters and who are currently employed were interviewed between December 2nd and 13th. And I'd like to share just a few of the findings of that survey. Respondents expressed a real dissatisfaction with Iowa's entertainment opportunities. More than 2/3 of them feel they're inferior to those that are available in other states. However, the opposite is true for Iowa's outdoor recreational opportunities. Perhaps highlighting the outdoor recreational options in North Iowa could be a winning message in our recruitment efforts. When asked about the state's infrastructure in our schools, most respondents viewed Iowa's public schools as superior to those in most other states. The same is true for Iowa's water quality, but they were less thrilled with our roads, public transportation, and the internet. In fact, all three of these, the majority felt our offerings are inferior to other states. However, schools ranked near the bottom when it came to Iowans' favorite things about our state. It's likely that while they think our schools are great, they believe it would be easier to find a state with similar quality schools than it would be to find a state with a small town feel, a low cost of living, friendly people, and a safe environment. Those four things were overwhelmingly the top attributes that people who are working in our state currently feel is best about Iowa. And what are the biggest drawbacks? No surprise, the weather, sporting events, and entertainment. Perhaps highlighting fun winter activities like snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, going to hockey games could help alleviate some of this dissatisfaction. Likewise, maybe we could brand the Hawkeyes and the Cyclone sports as everybody's team as opposed to only students and alumni. And we could create more of a community feel with that. Certainly, we want to ensure our marketing efforts hit our biggest attributes. Our small town feel, low cost of living, friendly people, and a safe environment. Before Chad Schreck gives you an update on housing and workforce recruitment, we'd like to play a 30-second commercial the Chamber produced that ran on our local television stations during December. Our goal was to focus on attracting people with a tie to North Iowa to encourage them to come back to our region. And following this video, we'll have Chad come up and give his presentation.
Oh, I'm so glad you're home.
Me too.
I wish we never had to leave.
You know, maybe we don't have to.
So I see you're looking to relocate. Why North Iowa?
Well, this is home.
All right, great. This is on, right?
Hold it.
Hold it close, all right. Great video and great information from Robin and the Iowa Chamber Alliance that I get to be the chair of this year. It's a really awesome organization, and a lot of that information will guide what we do this year. Let's see if this is working for me. Okay, so I get to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the things that we're doing as a Vision North Iowa partnership. For this issue, all the notes that Ron made, this is not an easy issue, right? And we've been beating our heads against the wall for all 7 years I've been here. Before that, this is not a new issue, but I am glad to say that over the past several years, we put this Vision North Iowa together to put that plan together, to figure out what are the things we can do. How do we look at this? We never did the 90-degree thought, but I think we did. Just didn't use the same language, right? So I think it's important to go back to where we started. We said, hey, we got some issues in North Iowa. We know it. But how do we come together and make them better? And, you know, we just said, we got to work together to improve the lives of all North Iowans. That's why everybody in this room is here. We all care. We all want to be a part of it. And how do we bring ourselves, our organizations together to do that? We try to follow several principles as we put that together. You know, working regionally, teaming up, we're better together. I think we all know that. Mason City isn't Mason City without Clear Lake. Clear Lake's not Clear Lake without Mason City and around in the surrounding region. And I think the more that we work together, the more successes we've seen. I think that you can see it. Robin touched on a few of them. I'll show a few as well. But we continue to see great success. And I think it's the point. Be true to ourselves. We cannot be Des Moines or Minneapolis or Chicago, and that's okay. That's why I'm here. That's why a lot of you are here. I don't want the big city. I like this small town feel. I like the sense of community. I like the opportunity to make a difference here. How do we make sure that we communicate that to others, to young people that want to have that? So these are just important things that we try to put this whole plan and effort together. And a big part of this is how do we bring the businesses together? How do we bring our community together, our people? You know, we're trying to impact all of those. And all of our partners, these organizations that were part of this effort, that's what we do. A lot of us work with businesses. A lot of us work directly with our community members, our cities, our county. We all came together and said, how do we work this together? Who fits in where? How do we make sure that we are successful together, that we're not stepping on each other's toes, we're not fighting, we can compete. A tech company, I had a cool term I like, co-opetition, right? We cooperate, but we're competitive. We want to do better, we want to one-up each other, that's okay. It makes us both stronger and better, and it helps the other one too. So I think it's okay to have that spirit in all these organizations. It's been so fun to work together, to bring that relationship closer over the last several years between our organizations. We've worked through the plan, huge to what we can do. So Ron laid out the issue. I mean, we know this. This is a problem. I think this quote sums it up, the importance of it, why we need to do it. We don't want to lose this issue because we'll lose as a community. So we know the numbers. Ron laid this all out. We're a community. We're we're one of those ones that has not grown. We've had this relatively stable loss of population for 50 years. We see huge need. Ron showed it better in the graphs, but we actually had about 25,000 people working here in 2019. Then the pandemic, we lost over, almost, over 2,000 jobs, 2,000 people working, and we barely made up 600 of them in the last year. So that's tough. But our unemployment rate is 2.7%. So where did those people go? How did we not get them back into the workforce yet? That's an issue that we need to continue to explore and be better at. But we're trying to address this, like Ron said, there's a lot of things that we got to do. We're trying to address this in three main buckets: housing, placemaking, improvement. There's a whole lot of other efforts that I'm not going to touch on too much today, but these are three big ones in the year ahead that we are really focused on and we've been working extremely hard. The This is North Iowa campaign. It's kind of what a lot of this is lumped under. This is our campaign to recruit people, attract people. A lot of these things tie into it. But I'm going to start with housing. We know that we have an incredibly tight housing market. You guys have all seen, if you look for a house in the last 2 years, it's darn near impossible. If you brought an employee into town, how long did it take them to find a house that they wanted, or an apartment, or something of that nature? It's a huge, huge need area for us. And it's a limiting factor to our growth. So over the last year, we've seen some great successes. We have the Talent Apartments in downtown Mason City that we had the pleasure of working with. Brought 130 units. They filled those within a few months. They've got an ongoing waiting list. It's been a huge success, and it just showed the significant need for quality, affordable apartments in our community, as well as townhomes. We have 20 townhomes that built as well. And didn't even make a dent. If you're a realtor, did it make a dent in what you do? Did it make it any easier to find good housing? It hasn't, right? So we need more. We have the One Vision Timber Crest Apartments, beautiful facilities over at One Vision, added a nice high quality thing that we haven't had. Spring Lake Townhomes, the Echo Development here in Clear Lake, doing several apartments and townhomes. Great successes, very nice things to see. Several subdivisions going on in both communities as well. So really nice successes that continue to build on. But this year, one of the cool initiatives that we're starting through the corridor is called North Iowa Border Housing Corporation. And really we're looking at together to have a more direct driver for the housing needs of our communities group. It's going to be a 501c3 organization. We're in the process of getting that set up right now. It's a huge goal to really help implement a lot of the activities that we're talking about. We've got a countywide comprehensive plan that the city of Mason City, Clear Lake, and the county are working on together to really put together a plan for how do we develop our community. And it's kind of the next logical step of the Vision North Iowa planning process. We're in year 4 and 5 of Vision North Iowa implementation. And this will really be the next step of that. A little bit more coordinated, a little bit more intensive on the government side, the governmental partners, and how we develop our county, and housing will be a big part of that. Mason City Housing Initiative, the city is wrapping up their housing plan and implementation for that, which again, the housing corp will be a big part of helping to implement in Mason City and across the county. One of the first projects that we're looking at for the housing corporation is the Ywca Building over in Mason City. If you've seen that, it is a historic building downtown. It's been in tough shape. New owners come in, they're doing some really cool things with it, do an artisan colony. But there's a big component of that building that needs some help. So we're looking at potentially converting the side of that to 10 apartment units, again, in that affordable range, and applying for a state grant to assist with that. The city of Mason City is going to be a big player in assisting in the funding on that. So we're working through all the steps on that as well. We've got to apply for that by the end of this month. But that's a big one. We've got workforce housing development. Again, assisting in multifamily development, subdivision development. This organization will allow us to apply for city or federal and state funding. And again, it just gives us that tool to drive this process and help to move forward all the different housing things that we want to do in our community. Also, in the last year, we've seen significant private investment, significant private interest in new projects. Talent is looking at phase 2 over downtown Mason City, about a block west of their current facilities, about 100 new units there. They're also interested in some new townhomes in different parts of the community. Again, huge need for us. That we hope will take off here in the summer. I've had conversations with numerous developers looking at subdivisions. I think in Clear Lake, we've had conversations between myself and Mr. Flory of 3 or 4 different developers looking at significant subdivision development opportunities. In Mason City, same thing, 3 or 4 new subdivision opportunities that we're talking to. And we need to hit every element of this housing situation, from the affordable to the middle to the top, right? So we're trying to address each and every one of those. And between all these different elements, we will. Next one, placemaking. Robin touched on this, so I'll just burn through this, but there's just so many important things. You know, quality of life. We're trying to attract people. We have to be a cool place. We have to be a place people want to live. So we've got a lot of cool factors in our favor. We've got solid cost of living. We're lower than the state and national averages. We've got amenities. We've got safety. We've got opportunity, stability, all those things that a lot of people want, especially coming out of the pandemic. We see our schools and our communities invest in the Clear Lake Wellness Center, the Mason City School Natatorium and expansions there. We've got, my clicker's getting at me now too, Ron. You know, the splash pad, the multi-purpose arena, Virgil's reopening, the old Ywca Building reopening. You name it, we're in this beautiful facility here. How many hotels were built in the last year? It's a tough question. How many hotels were built across the country in the last year or two?
Last year, and then it was something like 500 something, 600
There, 500 hotels were built?
in the whole country.
Yeah, and this, yeah. But that was how much down from the years before that?
Oh, they've been pushing over 1,000.
Yeah, so it's been halved, and we've got one of them, right? So it's a significant development that we can't let that go by. It's pretty amazing it's got done. Skip one. You know, downtown Mason City working on the Riverwalk. When's that starting? Pretty soon. In the next year or two, getting the Riverwalk under construction. The hotel getting under construction. God willing, we'll get a good announcement on that very soon. A lot of good things happening both for our towns. And the Tech Center, Innovation Center, we applied for this grant earlier this year. We did not receive it. We continue to work forward with NIAC, Papa John Center, and communities on the opportunity for a Tech Center, Innovation Center, trying to drive that workforce in the future. How do we provide the opportunities for our students and others to be trained up in the jobs of the future? Finally, the last one, recruitment. You know, this is hard, right? Ron will tell us it's really hard to attract new people to our communities. We know that. It's been a huge problem for Iowa for 100 years. So we know this is an uphill battle, but how do we change that message? How do we share the qualities of North Iowa? So we, as I mentioned, starting the This is North Iowa campaign, we're looking at information, looking at the data. Why are people moving? What's led them to move, especially coming out of COVID? How can we attract those people that are most likely to consider a move right now? You know, we see all the different reasons for people doing it, and we're trying to make sure that we address those, the safety, the savings, the money, supporting their family, and having a good, healthy place to be. And I'm not going to throw a ton of data and charts at you guys, but we're looking at a lot of information as part of this campaign. We're trying to see where have people traditionally come from if they move to North Iowa. Those areas must be good fertile recruiting ground for us, right? We know Minneapolis, Chicago, Des Moines, Polk County area are all areas, surrounding counties. Those are areas that we can look to for past success and potentially future success. Again, these are just drilling into that zip code level. We know where we're going to push our marketing to and spend our money on to be most effective. And then we even look at the types of people. Like we're trying to recruit to specific job types. We have huge needs in manufacturing, healthcare, construction. Blue collar jobs. We have significant needs. So we're going to take an omni-channel approach to this. We'll work with a group called Amplify Digital. That's going to help us hit things through email, through websites, through social media, through video, your YouTube, your Hulu, different components like that, and obviously websites and different traffic. And the really cool thing with this is they're hitting the same people in multiple ways with different messages, with similar messages that are interested in communities like ours and have the jobs and skills that we're looking for. So we're not just doing a big blast. We know that if we did a national campaign about North Iowa, it probably would fall on a lot of deaf ears. So we're going to try to do as close of a job as we can to get those people interested in us. So this is, again, the targets that we're looking at, those healthcare, construction, blue-collar manufacturing jobs, the numbers that we're trying to hit through this program. Again, I won't get too deep into this, but we're going to be doing emails, we're going to be doing specific locations and zip code targets. We can do a building. Say there's a college out there that has specific skills that we're interested in. We can target people that have been in that building and try to recruit those specific individuals that have those skill sets we're after. And again, we'll just keep hitting the same people and all of that. We're going to try to support relocation. How do we make it easier? How do we hit those barriers that Ron mentioned? What makes it hard for somebody to move here? What makes it hard for somebody to stay here? How do we make sure that we're addressing those issues, hitting those, answering those questions, hitting the surveys, and seeing what people are saying gets them here or not? And you can go to thisisnorthiowa.com. It's kind of our landing page for a lot of this. We're going to have specific landing pages for each of those entities or those sectors that I mentioned, healthcare, manufacturing, construction, that really try to target and pinpoint people in those profession areas so that their information is coming at them. They can go and look for more. They can go to the job boards for your companies. We want to get the companies involved in this as we go. Obviously, we hope you'll see new traffic from this. And the cool thing with this is we've had some of our partners have had success with this approach. And I get to introduce Jeff Brinkley, our chief from Mason City Police Department, who has worked with Amplified Digital, and they had a really cool campaign that's had some significant results, and we hope to duplicate those for ourselves.
Thanks, Chad. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for taking the mic out here so I can wander a little bit. Not much to stand at the podium, that guy. But as you all know, workforce is difficult these days. Trying to get cop. It's hard, but I think it's harder for us. We have we have an unfortunate history sometimes in our profession of being our own worst enemy. And so as we look back at George Floyd, for things that have happened in the law enforcement community over the last several years, that has added to the challenge of law enforcement. We went out really intentionally this last time that we recruited with the support of Aaron Burnett, our city manager, Mayor Schickel, and the council, making some significant improvements and adapting to the market in terms of wages and benefits. And so we went with a full digital media campaign as we went into that recruitment. We had seen a dwindling law enforcement applicant pool over probably the last 6 or 7 years. Since I had been here over the last 6 years, we'd seen a decline every time we went out in the number of applicants that we had. And so that was our big challenge, is how do we get people into the top of the funnel to get the best people we want at the bottom of the funnel. And so the digital marketing piece was our approach. So we did a 4-week project with Amplified Digital, and during that time we had 930,000 touches on our materials. They have a way, like Chad was saying, using geofencing and those kinds of things. You really drill into what you're looking for. And so what we really did as we did our approach was we rolled out a new video that talked about the support of the community for law enforcement in Mason City. Specifically, I don't know, those of you that are from the area, here you've seen the support law enforcement signs that people have in the yards. Went around, we took a bunch of pictures of houses that had those on. And that was really, what we thought was a selling point of our community, is that we aren't having some of those kinds of problems here. And a lot of our staff is from the area, they're from the community, and so they're every day out answering those questions as they run you at the grocery store, they see the church or school events and those kinds of things. And so that's a great way for us to communicate with you every day. You get your questions answered right away about what's going on in the police department in your town. And so there's just no speculation or worry about that because it's very transparent. And so we also felt like with what's going on in the community, a lot of the stuff that Ron talked about, Robin and Chad already talked about, the momentum that we have in North Iowa was also very attractive. And so the amenities, the quality of life, the safety of the community were all pieces we wanted to sell. So our marketing worked around that as well. But at the end of the day, we were able to bring 1,100 people back to our Ywca job site, on the city website, who actually looked at our job, and we had 73 people apply. That's the best recruitment we've had in the last 8 years. Those are numbers we hadn't seen for that kind of time. So I would highly encourage you to think about what you're doing with that package. There aren't a lot of law enforcement agencies that are doing this. I think the other things you have to look at as you go to hire employees is you've also got to be agile in the process. We completely accelerated. We went from the day we met these people at 9 to do their physical fitness test to day of hire was 66 days. We've never done that before. most law enforcement agencies can't do that. And so it took our entire agency buying in. We took supervisors doing background investigations. It took convincing Perry, the Human Resources Department, to capture our testing process in 1 weekend, to cut 2 or 3 weeks out of that process and speed it up. Because you all know we're all competing for the same people. And so if I can get to them just a little bit faster, that's going to work. And so we had a lot of success with that. We hired 8 to 10 people that passed through our testing process. We hadn't done that kind of percentage hiring, that many competent applicants come through in some time. So we really feel like we've got part of the puzzle figured out. We started the recruitment next week, so I'll tell you in 90 or 100 more days maybe if it worked the second time around. But I think you've really got to be thinking about these pieces. We're happy to answer questions about that. Reach out to me. I know most of you here. Give me a call if you have questions about that and you want to know how that works. But think about it, and thanks for the opportunity to tell you about our success. And I hope we keep doing that. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate the information and sharing your story, because I think it's so important for us as we came into this. It's an investment for us to be going after an effort like this. And to have somebody that has success with it directly, we're trying to do this a little bit more broad as a community and into specific industry types. But we're going to need our employers to help out a little bit. So if we drive you traffic, please we want you to be prepared. We're going to try to continue sharing more information. So we want you to be prepared and hopefully doing what you can to show people, hey, we want you, we need you. If that traffic comes, but we want to start having plans to work together so that we can help you. And utilize our resources, all the partners, the chambers, us, at the corridor, the visitor centers. We have information, we can help you. Robin mentioned the concierge program. Make us a part of your recruitment process if you're bringing people from out of the state. Because you got to sell the community. A lot of the times we hear people just end up not taking the job because they're afraid if they move here, they won't like it. Let's make sure that we're showing them why they'll like it and utilize these resources. This is North Iowa. Utilize the folks in our organizations. So without any further ado on that stuff, we will move into audience questions. Ron, if you want to come back up, you can throw everything you got at Ron. Utilize the rocket scientist while you got it. And if you have questions specific to the Vision North Iowa partnership, I'll be up here. You can throw them at me as well. So whoever wants to go first.
I'm Ywca from the Mason City School District. In the last year, we lost about 200 students. Those 200 students represent about $1.4 million for us. I say that just to underscore how important this problem is to us too. When we analyze exit codes and records, we can see that the vast majority of them went with families who moved out of state. So we also represent a major gatekeeper to the future workforce. So my question for you is, what as a K-12 school district can we be doing or should we be doing to contribute to the solution here?
First off, all the stuff that was highlighted that you're doing, don't stop, right? I mean, you need to do that and more. And I can tell you, not all communities are doing this, but a lot are. So for every Mason City, there's another 20 or 30 small towns in Iowa that are doing exactly what you're doing and trying to do it better than you. And so are little towns in Minnesota and Illinois and everywhere else. So do not stop. Do not let your foot off the gas. Can I get back to my 170 or 90 slides? I'll try to, I want to show you 2 things that are...
What do you want?
Keep going back up to around 90.
Okay.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. Let's see, the 81. Okay, I'm going to ask you to stick there. So these are some of the questions I gave. I want to show you a few things. Let's go to 9, population. Just touch that button. Then I should be able to control it. That's not 9. That's my favorite coffee. This, push the orange house again. Let's try this again. I might have messed up. Okay.
It might be because I imported it into this presentation, so it's just moving to the wrong part.
We're gonna try one more time. Click on population.
Where do you want to go?
I'm gonna take over.
Okay.
I'm gonna go, so I've embedded this funky little thing in PowerPoint where you can push a button and it goes to something. I'll back up to something I didn't say initially. I scheduled 25 of these talks last July, thinking I'd do this and then I'd go back and do my normal job. This is the 80th time I'm giving this talk, and I have not tried to schedule anymore. I've got 20 more scheduled, and I keep telling people no. But everybody is worried about workforce. So I'm going to run through some things. It's going to touch on something, then I'll try to answer your question. This is the USA. Let's look at some time periods. In 1945, coming out of World War II, something like 98% of men work. And they've been laggards ever since. Fewer men working. Women have been covering them. Women in the workforce. But women got sick and tired in 2000 of seeing men leave the workforce, and they decided to start working. So we were hiding the fact that people have been leaving the workforce in the U.S. See the little COVID blip? We were going to get there anyway. Both men and women have been leaving the workforce. Fertility rate. This is part of what I want to get to. It peaked, right? Coming out of the baby boomers. You know, they didn't work, they were having babies. But in 1970, people stopped having babies in the U.S. In 2007, you need 2.1 children. Anybody have 2.2 or more children? Growing North Iowa. Because 2.1 doesn't make it to adulthood. Every female in the United States has to have 2.1 children on average. So coming out of the 2008 recession, usually you stop having children when you see a recession and you start afterwards. Nobody got the memo after the 2008 recession. You start having babies. The 2019 data is lower still, 1.70. The U.S. is not replacing its population. That's part of the school system. So this conversation I'm having about workforce, it's about the schools, it's about the number of students who are going to show up at Iowa State. These numbers are going to affect schools across the country. Immigration, 2016 at peak. Immigration was covering up in the schools, in the workforce, the fact that we stopped having as many babies. These are projections of the population of the U.S. Gray is no immigration. It peaks in 10 years. I tell everybody, this is the U.S. It's going to happen to Iowa sooner. So Mason City's population decline is because Iowa is one of the slowest growing states. This is happening in the U.S. and it's happening here soon. These numbers are great to change the equation because not only is the immigrant a new person, immigrants have more babies per female, and it adds up. But all these curves are being downsized because of the recent reduction in immigration into the country. So we going. Why is this going backwards? Oh, if I know how to push a button. People came here for land in the 1800s. We ran out of it. We gave it all away. There's still mountains. There's still oceans. There's still warm temperatures. And these other states are saying, we still got that if you want it. So why are they leaving? This started happening 100 years ago. The U.S. is voting with its feet. They don't want to live in rural places. You might not want to hear it. This is rural population. It peaked in 1990 in the U.S. Headed down. People are voting with their feet. They want to live in Chicago. Don't ask me why. My children live in Minneapolis, Denver, and Mexico City. Why the heck would you choose places like that? Well, they are voting with their feet. there's anything else in here. I think we've covered most of this. I'm going to try one more time to show you one other piece of data I want to show you. And this is not population. I'm going to stop. You had a thing on how, or somebody mentioned housing. You look at everybody that moved from one house to another, something like 60% of them moved in the same county. Bigger house or smaller, because they have more money or less, more kids or less. So you're targeting the 40%. They live somewhere, other county, and you want them to move here. Why do people move? A job from one county to another. But it's mainly college degrees. I'm a welder in Chicago. Why should I move here to be a welder? It's tough to get a welder to move. You need a physician here, or a CFO. When they don't have a CFO job in another small county, they might move here. Number one reason after that is fame. People move somewhere else. You had it in your video, right? I came home. The problem with Iowa's small towns, we used to have 13 kids, a bunch left, and 6 left, and 3 came back. Now we have 2 kids, and 1 leaves, and they don't come back. This is an equation. Unless you all go and start having a lot more babies, or embrace immigration, or something, it is an uphill battle. So, I don't have any answer to you. It is happening in schools across the country, except in places that are growing significantly. Denver, 100,000 people are moving there. 100,000, 4 Mason cities every year. They can't build places fast enough. Cranes everywhere. What's the answer? You got to try to get people to move here. You've got to right-size your expenses, make up for the declining revenue. I don't have an answer for you. Except you've got to be a great community with great companies that people want to live and work here instead of St. Ansgar, instead of Minneapolis, because you got something that they don't have. Other questions?
Recently, they announced different tax proposals for the state of Iowa. Does that have a big draw on Brinkley from those states in your experience as far as research?
I've lived in 2 places with no taxes.
I think it works now.
Do you think it works?
Yeah. I thought it
Our
worked.
taxes are too high. I lived in Seattle. And I lived in Texas. And I just told one of my Texas friends, this is what they're doing in Iowa. And they said, what are you paying property tax? We have the same kind of tax. Well, you pay twice. My general rule is, when we get to the taxes, there's 2 components, revenue and expense, right? So taxes is an expense on you. So my daughter moved to the most highest tax suburb of Minneapolis. Why? Well, she's got a really high-paid job, and her husband has a really high-paid job, and they want all these amenities, and they don't care about the taxes. So that's not true of everyone. But as long as you've got enough revenue, who cares what the expense is, right? This is compensation. Revenue. Iowa is the 44th lowest compensation in the country. Wages and benefits. Who said cost of living is low here? Bologna sausage. There's this thing called Amazon. I can buy stuff at the same price that you can buy in LA. We only move up to 39 when you take into account. Now Mason City is low. This is the Iowa average. Iowa only moves up to number 35. We were beating the heck out of South Dakota, Mississippi, and West Virginia. We're still kicking Arkansas and South Dakota and West Virginia's backside. We are a low-wage state, low-compensation state. So we do have a lower cost of living. When you adjust for it, we move up a little. But are you going to attract, every state in green is around us? You can make more money versus your costs, except for South Dakota. They're kicking it. That's a cheap place to live. South Dakota do they have taxes? No. Are people moving to South Dakota? They're moving to Sioux City in South Dakota, paying us taxes, but they're not, nobody's moving to South Dakota. Sorry. Is it South Dakota natives? I'm sorry, I didn't say that. I better say, they're going to get the money from you somewhere or the other. I don't know about taxes. Talk to a politician. Here is when you take all taxes into account. In Texas, every year, you have to have your car looked at. You have to drive it to a gas station because they've got this petroleum industry, and they turn your brake lights on and off. And they turn your lights on and off. And they honk your horn. And you have to pay $25. That's a tax. So when you look at taking all taxes into account, yes, Texas is cheaper, 8%. Iowa's 10.8%. South Dakota, 9.1%. Lower taxes, North Dakota is lower. Are people flocking to South Dakota and North Dakota? Minnesota has higher taxes than Iowa. And people are moving there. Taxes is part of it. You have to have a place people want to live. You have amenities and everything the survey said. You need revenue. So, I don't know. I'm not a tax policy person. But look at the whole picture. Revenue and expenses. People want to be paid well so they can take care of the kids, etc. Okay, you can push the button. Other questions? Oh, you are an easy crowd. I'm going to hit you with something else.
You got one.
Oh, we got one.
Sure, right here. So qualitatively, it seems as though we have seen an influx of families come from metro areas just in the last 12 to 18 months. Have you seen some of that data change where people are coming out of metros into more rural areas?
So that's been talked about a lot. A lot of the government data, when you get down to a county level, it can take a year or more. The federal government is starting to survey and ask different questions now. COVID threw a blip in it. Things like remote work didn't exist. They didn't really care about it. So they're now surveying more regularly on these different questions. Do I have any data on it? No. My question is, for those that moved here, is it more than those that have left? I have the data for this county, and I'm pretty sure it's not. Otherwise, your workforce numbers would be declining, right? People tend to leave from rural areas to bigger rural areas to cities like Mason City, then they move to places like Des Moines, right? There's this transition of people, and it's been happening for 50 years, out of rural areas towards bigger cities. So I'd have to look up the data. But here's, let's hit all we need, number 2 up at the top, and I think it's in the next one. So you've covered some of these, but some communities are looking for a silver bullet. One thing, you need all of those things. What I say is there's no Lone Ranger, right? Silver bullet. You need lots of things, and you're doing lots of things. And my argument is you need all that just to be in baseball. Doesn't mean you're going to win. And you're competing against everybody else that's starting to see this. They're going after the same families. I think this is the one. All we need is more people to move here. So, I took this off the internet. No other place but here. So is that gone or is that just Mason City? This is North Iowa.
That's it, Mason Cities.
Fort Dodge this is Fort Dodge. And Iowa just came out with this is Iowa. So lots of people are saying this is the place to be. Integrate a lake slide, right? You see, there's Brent, pretty close. Towns are starting to pay people to move there. This is what I was telling you about Florida. over 70% of the economy is 10% growth. Look at northern Minnesota. And they're getting people to move there. So you know where Zero Growth County is. It's in this sea of yellow. Of slow growth, slow decline. So it's good somebody moved here. Tell them to have babies.
How much of an impact did the COVID situation and the ability for people to work remotely affect our population? Like, how much did it speed that up?
So that's some of the surveys, and we're getting this information from companies now. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is now asking this question. So they have ranked every industry in the U.S., manufacturing, construction, agriculture, and they've surveyed what percent of the jobs can be remote. And the new phrase they're using is the take-up factor. You're a company, let's say you're finance, it's something like 90% of your jobs can be remote. The take-up factor is, well, what percent of your jobs are remote? And it's about a quarter across all industries. So of all the people that could be working remotely, the U.S. is only allowing about a quarter of the people working remotely. So that is the trend. And what we're seeing in companies, I got threatened to leave and say it's because I want to work remotely, and you'll find out if they want you or not, because they'll let you work remotely or not. I think do I have a remote work one? Number 10? I've heard people can live in safe Iowa and telecommute to the big city. Absolutely do. My daughter, I just went down there and moved her from Guatemala to Mexico City. And every time I call her in Guatemala, she's in a hammock on the beach. And I said, vacationing yet? She said, no, I'm working. What do you mean you're working? Dad, I've got a laptop. I prefer to work on the beach. It's a great gig if you can get it. So, choose anywhere in the United States or the world to live and work remotely. This is the image of Iowa, outside of Iowa. My son has chosen to live over here, near Denver, because he wants to put NBA games, things like that. Are people going to move to rural America and work remotely? I think they're going to move to urban America and work remotely. Now the good news for Iowa, we have seen companies start to hire, rural companies hire remotely, especially professional jobs, and they're solving the workforce problems. Talk to a company trucking things out. They can't find truck drivers now. They're now hiring truck drivers in the destination cities of the trucks, and they're their employees. They're just sleeping in Michigan and driving back and forth to the same factory. But they're solving a remote worker arriving at the factory and taking things away. So it's just a different way of thinking of how I'm going to find people. I also know of a company that offered like a cybersecurity kind of person a $200,000 plus salary to work in Des Moines. They worked for 3 days a week, and they took a job in San Francisco for $400 plus. So this thing can help Iowa for remote work. And by God, it can hurt us if people start taking jobs in other states and living here. Now it's going to help. We're going to spend our money. We're going to go to the ball game and things like that. I don't know about taxes, as I said. I don't know if that helps Iowa or hurts Iowa. We could have fewer employees for Iowa companies if people start searching for jobs outside of Iowa. So I don't know the answer. We are in. We've got a chart here somewhere. Every recession is the same, going back 50 years. More women are laid off. This is the first recession in 50 years where more men are laid off, where more women lost their jobs. Right? And this remote work, we are not done seeing where this train is headed. Other questions?
What will be the impact of the automation of low workforce, higher wages? It's going to spur more investment in automation.
every rapidly moving, quick thinking company is all in. Robots. The machines aren't coming, they're here. You got a McDonald's in Clear Lake. Guess what? Machines, humans didn't make that hamburger. Machines made the hamburger. McDonald's has taught you to go up and use a kiosk or order on an app. When you order a Coke in the drive-thru line, nobody touches that until they pick it off the machine and put the lid on and hand it out. And I guarantee you, McDonald's will have a robot hand it for you. White Castle is working on French frying robots now, from hanging to the ceiling so it's not in the way of people walking by. Robots are here. We have seen some companies invest close to $100,000 per employee, knowing that they need to grow, there's no more people, and they figured out they can still make the profit they have by investing between $50,000 and $100,000 per person. The issue with rural Iowa is robots need to be fixed. And you need enough of them to make it worthwhile to get to that remote location. I heard some parts of rural Iowa. I know that answers all your question. It's happening. Companies are investing more and more and more in automation. It's not just manufacturing. There are brick-laying robots out now who build brick walls. All you need is somebody constantly bringing bricks to it and cement, concrete. And that's what's, I think, going to happen. A bifurcation of job types. More and more wealth and more low-skill, low-wage jobs. It's not where I think it's headed. My main point of this message is you got to change. The easy pickings are done. Choose to change, then develop a plan. You've got great workings on a plan. Keep it up. Don't stop. Everybody has this problem. You're not alone. Any more questions for Ron or for us, the partners?
So just curious, the trend of kids moving back home to be close to their family is one. But now there's also a huge trend of parents moving closer to the kids. Which one is happening more often?
I have no data. I have an opinion. I just visited my daughter in Mexico, and God, it's really warm there. I don't know the answer. You know, this is a country, we are a free country. People can move anywhere. It's great. If you gotta force somebody to live somewhere, if you want to be Russia or China, we can do it. Who wants that? Nobody wants that. So we created this free society, which is great. We've got to figure out a way. I mean, you're drinking the North Iowa Kool-Aid. I've drunk it. I like it. You got to keep doing what you're doing. But marketing isn't the only thing. You got to change. Then you got to market that you're something different than memory. My kids all have a memory of Mason City, and it's not what Mason City is today. They know what it was like 20 years ago.
Your house out of Ames, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. I was told, I would say, in the dramatic growth thing corridor, what would you attribute that to? Is that just do they change their thought process? Do they do something special? Because that's kind of gone tenfold since I graduated from 92.
Yeah. I was getting a PhD and some houses were popping up in Miami, and I drove by and who the hell would want to live in that place is going nowhere. So listen to me on that kind of show. It's the charge on people wanting to live in cities. I gave this talk in Garner, Iowa, and one of the Rotarians stood up and said, "This is my last meeting. Move it, man." That's where my grandkids are. I gave this talk at the Anchorage Rotary 2 months later, and there he was. And they were introducing him. He stood up and said, "I moved here for my grandkids." Yes, that happened. I'm you know, all the data, out migration goes this way, in migration this way. And you change the slopes a little, and one can be bigger than the other, or one can be smaller. I talked to Burlington, I looked, in the last 20 years, they lost 10% of the population from like 28,000 to 25,000. If that trend continues, I mean, they're going to disappear. They're not going to disappear, but the large manufacturers have to feed the machine. So if they're not doing automation, they're going to start looking elsewhere if communities can't hold the populations. Okay? Thank you very much. You've done a great job.
I got to tell two stories. This whole conversation is going to be ago. So I was doing vacation in Florida last week, and it's warm, and it's nice food. And we were doing this kayak tour at night to see bioluminescence, algae, and jellyfish that glow in the dark, right? So we're doing this. And there's this 20-something kid that's our guide, and adorable kid, right? And he's gushing the whole time about Florida, how much he loves it. And he's like telling us everything. And I just love this, we do this, and I was up here, and this whole preserve is amazing, you know. And, you know, you're like, oh, this is really cool. Like, it excites you, I'm excited about being here. And I'm in vacation break, and he's just kind of stops, he's like, where are you guys from again? Iowa. He's like, oh yeah, what's that known for? I've never been there. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be able to sell this place, right? But I shouldn't say this, but I did. I told it, what are we known for, right? And that's a real problem. It is a problem. Like, what are we known for? And it's like, well, you would probably know us for corn. But what is our response to that? It just made me stop. I'm like, what is our response to that? How do we be advocates for our community and sell it and be excited about it, be proud of it? Because I am. I love it. Again, like I said, that's why I'm here. And I didn't have a good answer off the cuff like that, which I'm embarrassed as can be about it, but it made me think about it later. I was like, well, honestly, it's the people, it's the family, it's people, it is just different here in that regard. So anyway, whatever it is for you, I just encourage you to have that thought so you don't look like me, like I look. The second one, since we got the rocket scientist, I was listening to a podcast with Elon Musk getting interviewed the other day, and the guy asked him, he said, so what is it that drives you or motivates you? Like, you get to a really hard problem and can't figure it out. Like, what is that? Like, you keep going. Like, what is it that keeps you going? And Elon like sits there. Like, it was really uncomfortable. He sat there for like 2 minutes. He was silent. He's like, I've never even contemplated this. And he finally said, I've honestly never thought of it that way. He just said, we look at each other and we say, F it, we're getting it done. So, if he could, and look what he's done, obviously, it's pretty amazing. So I think as a community, this is hard, it's a lot of work to do. It's not going to be easy, it hasn't been easy, we know what we're fighting, every trend, they're all coming at us like a tidal wave. We get that, but we got a community that's worth fighting for, right? We got a lot of people that care and a lot of good things going for us. Maybe we won't turn that in the other direction, but we can keep slowing it down, hopefully, to the point where it stops, and then hopefully we can bounce back up and see some growth on the population side. But that's not everything. We've got a lot of good things, whether we're growing in that way or not. So, Rob, now if there's any other closing,
Just thank them, and if they want to tour.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you all. And thanks again, Ron, for coming up and speaking to our group. I really appreciate all of you do for us, all the Vision North Iowa partners from each of the organizations, their community and public partners, and our private ones as well. We really appreciate you guys. We hope you'll be a part of what we're trying to do here for North Iowa. And if you want a tour, we've got Cal Pesh in the back. He will take you around and show you this really amazing facility. Thanks, everybody.